Okay, guys, as always, please, we encourage feedback. Attention to detail is one of the things we're looking at. This demo, I think, will include some of the readability changes. Am I correct, Vinny and Mia?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. And maybe you can just draw our attention to those so that other people can have a look. Sorry, maybe you can draw our attention to that so that other people know what to look out for as well.
And are we confining our comments in any respect?
Everything that was mentioned on Friday has been updated.
So good. I think what David's asking is, I think, David, what we did last time was we confined project management to non-readability comments, but opened the floor for everybody to comment. And again, I think that thing stands, just to encourage everybody to see anything, say something. But for project management admin people to just really look for logic stuff, and then make notes of any language you see. Okay, round 2, let's go.
Okay, so I'm assuming no comments here.
Can I say something positive?
Yes.
Sure.
Yay! Good use of the basic question.
See, we like positive comments.
Okay, I like how this is now this is changed to like asking a question as opposed to
No.
Yeah, this is okay, and then also the order is switched.
Yes, the question order.
Yeah, Aubrey?
Just the spacing between, are those like supposed to be separate paragraphs where it starts you can and then before you?
Okay.
Either indented or put a space before, just because that catches my eye as just looking strange.
So either have it like have a space between the paragraphs, or have it like maybe in one paragraph?
Or indented. I don't know I didn't read the full sentences, I'll be honest, but it just caught my eye.
So I think that the watchword here would be consistency, right? So I do see there's a second paragraph down below. If those are 3 paragraphs, they should be delineated the same.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right.
So if you say no here, this is the page that now appears.
The exit screen.
Where does that exit to?
So the exit, we changed the link so that it doesn't just exit to DocAssemble, it exits here.
Very good.
Wonderful.
But now let me just restart.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Thanks, David.
Okay.
Okay, so that's a nice thing, and I think that for people who, I think that this format is quite nice. I think I'm going to incorporate this thing.
Can someone note down? Can someone note down as finishing work that the exit button should not lead to DocAssemble, at least should lead back to mass access.
Yeah, I do believe there's an issue there's an issue for that.
Oh.
Good. Yeah, but I mean, I think individual interviews are going to have to implement it.
Yes.
So, yeah.
If you do go to mass access, can you push the back arrow in your browser? What happens if you do the back arrow? Well, is there a back arrow in your browser if you go to mass access?
It's in your normal browser, yes.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. If we exit and then we try and do a back arrow, will it bring, it just...
You stop sharing your screen, is it?
That's, I don't know what happened. Let's see. I guess that's what happened.
I guess the answer is no, Carolyn.
No,
right. You click on the back button and you enter a Zoom meeting.
It was just too close to the stop share button. Okay, so back button, it does bring you back to the beginning of the
beginning, yeah.
Okay. So, and then we have these links which bring you to this form, the 209A, and then others to Mass Legal Help.
I like that they open in new tabs.
Yeah. That's a characteristic of DocAssemble, I think.
Well, I mean, you can change it.
Yeah, but I mean, if you don't do anything,
it wasn't changed. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I like this a lot, and I think that this is something that I will definitely implement.
Okay. And then, so if you click yes here, then it's going to ask if you know your court, or know the court name and your docket number.
And this would be an example of a place after MVP that we could try and put, I guess actually not, because it's a generic, so there's not going to be one specific
consistent form.
Yeah.
Consistent place where it would be.
But There are things we can, I mean, for example, you as the coder could make your own page that comes after that, right?
Sorry, what?
So, I'm going to discuss with one of the discussion items for coding is how to allow people to whether to and how to allow people to insert their own content in
Basic questions.
in basic questions. Yep. So that's a discussion item we're going to be.
Okay. So if you tap yes and if you tap no, if you tap yes, is it a show if?
No, it just brings
No.
you to your name, and then if you say no, it says you should wait to fill out this form, and then the exit button does the same thing where it will bring you to mass access.
Got it.
So this might be a situation where if they don't know it, because the impression is here, you'd say go get it, or you could say call the court if you don't have any of these
Should
things.
we should
Do you
add
wanna add that?
The only problem is they wouldn't know what court to call yet. This is
Because they
sort of
don't
a
know the
hard
court,
catch
They
yeah.
won't know
22.
a court. They won't know a docket number, so they can't say, "Do you happen to have my case there?"
Yeah, so that makes it difficult. So I think this is fine for now. But let's just
Okay.
think about that.
Maybe what we do
This
is we
is
have
one of
like
the things you talk to. This is one of the things you talk to Kate about, right?
I'm here, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, they could, if they know their court, the court can usually track down a case from just the party names. Sometimes if like they have difficult names, the court like can't handle that. But yeah, I mean, you could add call the court, like if you're real, yeah. I mean, if you know which court, call the court for your docket number. I don't know.
I think some kind of instructions about like what the next step is.
If they
right?
don't have anything, yeah.
So we
Maybe
should
that's something
add
you can work on constructing, Kate. Like
Maybe
putting
next,
together.
not anytime soon.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that
Maybe Mia and Vinny could have a look at
Yeah.
that and try and draw something up.
I have language thoughts, but I'm going to keep them to myself.
Make a little note there, David.
So should I add call the court or should I not?
I would
Is there
try with that
competitive?
language. I would try with that language, guys. I think that
Okay.
between the two of you can
Okay.
come up with
Yeah,
something
if
based
you know
on
the court.
what we've done here. And we
We
can
also
add
might-
that. Yeah, sorry, Kate?
We might be able to link to mass courts and say you can try searching for your case on masscourts. Whatever it is, org.
You
It is
Can you-
masscourts.org.
for probate and family cases?
Lawyers can. I'm trying to see it. What
Not the public
I
portal.
don't think probates can.
I think they can do a limited. I think they could get their docket number. Sorry, I keep like
Oh,
forgetting when I'm doing it. logging in.
Masscourts.org, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I used to work with the registry's office, and pro se people can usually look up through their last name and different courts what their docket number is, but they normally can't see any documents or print them out.
They can they just get that. They just get this information: court name and docket number.
Which
Yes.
is
So
what
that
you
would be
need,
useful.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
that'd be
Maybe
good.
Great.
maybe write how to do that so that they'll be able to come and give that as instructions for completion.
Yeah. So I think the takeaway here, guys, the kind of just the consensus is to include some kind of information about a next step. How to access that information, and then it's as we always say, I think it's easier to take something to someone for them to edit than to take it to say like, what do I do? So coming up with some language there, maybe the links and stuff like that, especially with Vinny's experience on that project, would be quite beneficial. And I think that maybe we can also all use that going forward.
Okay.
Cool.
Good job, guys. Okay.
So then when we click yes here, we're going to get name. It's a basic question. We're all good. Okay. And then we still have business, organization, or entity.
This is sorry. This is a language thing, but I wanted to bring this up. Do we want entity? I don't know if people know what entity is. Can we say agency instead of entity?
Let's put this on a list to talk about.
Yeah.
And talk about this a little.
Let's not
later.
break our
This is a
rules so
basic
quickly.
question.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I know, but we
I think
did
this is
right.
Thank you
already
for
resolved,
voicing.
though, because Kate and I talked about this yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think agency is really accurate.
Okay,
But-
never mind.
You could do trust. I don't know. It's just a
So
body.
maybe
right?
we'll talk about
Fine.
this
Yeah.
another
No,
time.
Yeah.
I know. I probably won't have time to be much on Slack the rest of the week. So it's
yeah. We'll put it. Maybe we can talk about it on Monday because it is a basic question, but it might be different from substantive area to substantive area.
So what I've done is I've taken a note of that, and we can then kind of come to a conclusion. But for now, I think, guys, that screen is good. We can leave it like that, and we'll alert you if we come to.
And you're using it as a basic question now, right?
Didn't you guys edit it?
This one, yes, it's edited.
Oh, you just did the entity, right? So if we change a basic question and it works, then you can use the basic question, right?
They will edit. They could potentially edit it to use the basic question. Yes.
Question before we get much further, what was the rationale behind not asking for the court and docket number after asking if they had the court and docket number?
Not asking for it.
Why?
That seems like a great selection.
Why wait to ask for it?
Say again, Michelle.
I think you're asking why wait to ask for it. Why not just ask for it right then?
That seems like a good point.
Yeah. So changing the interview flow.
Just user expectations. You say, "Do you have this thing?" And then you say yes, and then it's like, okay.
That is exactly how I conduct consultation.
Court name and the docket number right away. That's what you're saying. Yeah.
Okay, so I think the thing is that when we see the screen that should become after that, then we'll alert you guys. Also, I just sit here. This is obviously not important, but there's a typo. That page ID, it's like name of a opposing party.
Oh, okay.
That's not important. I mean, that's just okay.
So David, I'm sorry. You're thinking that to move. Do you have your core information docket number to the front before we ask any other questions?
Well, no. I think where the question is fine. It's that then you don't prompt them to include their docket number or the court. So you've just said, "Do you have these things?" And then you don't ask them for them. So I think it would be...
David's proposed flow is to say, do you have this? Do you have the court name and docket number? And then when they say yes, if and when they say yes, to then say, what is your court and what is your docket number?
Okay.
So basically in the logic block, in the code block that contains the logic flow, just shift those around and we'll find those page IDs and we'll alert those to move those around for you guys.
Okay.
So what you could do is, can you do a yes, no on the screen? And if it's yes, you enter it. If it's no, you go to the exit.
That's what I was thinking about. I'll just change the interview order. I'll just move those up in the...
Well, what I'm saying is it's not just the order, it's combining two screens.
I suggest not, because you'd have to press continue and that's confusing. If you just press yes or no and it takes you to a new page, that makes sense. But if you select that the radio button.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Well, if you say no, you could click continue. If you say yes, then you ask the questions and then say continue.
Right, but if you and I, let's discuss it afterwards. It's an interaction that I think we can discuss it now if you want, but if you...
I like Michelle's interaction, but we can table it if we need be.
Okay.
The point is just,
just have to ask that question.
I really like this logic, and I think that you guys have done this very well.
Yeah, this is a good one.
Oh yeah.
So it's the same stuff here. If you say yes to either of these, that bottom question is going to show up.
I wonder if these would be better changed to be above the fields. That's the only thing that I'm wondering.
Above the fields.
What do you mean?
The text of the question is above the yes, no answer, because like the bottom one gets really
long.
How do you do that, Michelle?
You add a note and then you put the question in the note, and then for the question you have no label. You put no label instead of a label.
Yeah.
And
I'd ask you to put a code snippet in the code channel, so that I think this is something that a lot of people on this call are going to want to see how to do.
And
well,
do we have any
to be careful
idea?
when we use it because it's inconsistent from the rest of the style. So that might be a style guide question for the style.
There's also worth considering accessibility implications given screen readers.
What are the screen readers don't read notes?
No, it's just I just said we should consider the implications. So that was something you would need to test to make sure that it didn't confuse things.
I believe that it would no longer be associated with the label of the question would no longer be associated with it. There might be something we can add to make that work better, but you're right that it complicates matters.
Yeah, I think you might need to add some alt text or so. I'm not sure, but
the other thing we could do is we could switch our style in general to having the question be above the fields. That is a setting in DocAssemble, but it is a setting that we have not yet decided on.
Yeah, I wouldn't
this
make,
is just the setting.
maybe we should talk about that, because I think when I've seen forms and usability studies on forms, that's not ideal.
Having the text above the question or having the text beside it, which one is not ideal?
Having them above the question, having the question above the answers.
Okay.
Even when it's a long one, like the third question there?
Well, no, what I'm saying is in general, it's not a good idea.
Okay.
So maybe,
the first two are fine. It's just that third one, it just gonna get a bit long. I mean.
Yeah, it definitely does. Yeah.
Okay.
Find a note and a shorter question.
It might be possible to make a shorter question and to write a note above or below it that
right. Yeah, you could have your question. Do you need the court question? And then you could have the note below. The court will still use your phone number to contact you, because the fact that the sentence isn't actually part of the question. It is a note, isn't it? It's an extra little piece of information.
I like that solution.
Good job, Eric.
All right. Do you all know how to make notes?
Yes.
Perfect. So just put that below there. Perfect.
Okay.
Great.
Okay.
I like how you've edited this from a basic question, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I like this edit. I think this is nice. And I think that this is something that maybe we can put as a snippet, because especially when cases are, you know, how the basic question is, are you starting or responding to a case? I think that's the basic question. But in cases where you could be, there's a likelihood that you might be responding. It's nice to have it like this, worded like this, I think.
I didn't notice this yesterday, but you see the question is, or are you responding to a case? And then the answer is, I am responding in this case. So I think we want to.
I was making a note on that because we were making notes on these things, but since it's out there.
Language edits.
So which one's better?
Two, it should be
It
consistent.
should be, I'm responding to this case.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. Then if we have the I do not knows for both of these, which will default to plaintiff or defendant.
Okay.
And then we also added this how do I know, which adds just a little bit of context.
Yep. Yeah, puts it nicely.
And then here I'll just do an I don't know.
I like the I don't know option as well. I think that's a good insertion.
And then this will come sooner because we're going to change that.
Yeah, so court information will be pulled up
at that beginning question. Okay, and then this is just basic questions. This is still a basic question.
From the basic questions, that court contact one, that should be at the end, because you might not know what special instructions. The idea here is a catch-all that you're about to send this off. So
it's supposed to be after you've signed and stuff.
Yeah. So it's so
I
after
don't know
you.
why it's appearing here. Do I have it?
The idea is that you will have known everything that you've said in the form, and so you will know if anything's missing. So so that doesn't move to the end.
Yeah, it looks like your preview attachment or whatever is asking for this. If it was
an if statement. Oh, that's what it is. Because I have created the statements in order to get this information to appear on the cover sheet.
Right, just create it afterwards, right? So do the signature and then add the cover sheet.
Okay, maybe I'll schedule a call with you to figure out how to do that.
Sure, that sounds good.
Okay. And then Right. Then we also added that this thing so that it can pound the other party's address. And then this was a new change as well.
So this is if you're starting, or is this and does it appear anytime? Not so helpful example.
No, this is the name of the motion, right? So when
Okay.
it doesn't matter if you're starting or responding, you still
Right.
have to have a motion for something.
I think the word okay, I shouldn't be doing language, sorry.
I think that, you know, like, I'm just confused about the order, the flow. But I guess no, I think it's fine.
If
Yeah,
other
there's
people
definitely-
are done giving feedback, I would love to. So my thought is that using the word example in the not so helpful example still makes it an example of something you can do. So though I think it is
It's not a
funny,
language thing, Michelle.
it's not.
So
It's
I think
more,
it's really good to
yeah,
say,
Michelle,
like,
you're really saying maybe not give a not helpful example at
Well-
all. Just give a helpful example.
Well, you can say, please do not say, please, avoid something like this, right? As opposed to not so helpful example, right? Don't include the word example.
You're saying
Sorry,
not
Debbie?
so. You're saying not so isn't strong enough, or
I'm saying using example in there is not useful.
oh,
I'm
Yeah.
saying that saying example means it's also an example. So that's
I see
not a
what you're
great
saying.
example, but you could do this also. If you,
more like the message is don't do this.
yeah.
right. It could be.
Yeah, this definitely needs
isn't-
some wordsmithing.
But,
Yeah.
but we can work on that. There's also an idea of it's possible that we could set a maximum number of characters, and if we go over it, we can say this is too long, right?
Yeah.
The other thing
Yeah.
I was is when it says this is the name of the motion. What about like this will be the name of the motion? This is to
Yeah.
me, like I should look for it somewhere. Like what am I looking for? What am
Yeah.
I think this is not going to change logic flow. All this is going to do is change text.
Okay. So
If we want to put a pin in it, we can. If we don't want to put a pin in it, we can keep talking about it.
I'm looking at the page ID, and I think that I'm just going to take a note of it, and we can then give feedback.
But this also seems like a generalizable issue that will come up in a couple of cases where we have people name things. So it's worth thinking about it in a general sense as opposed to just a specific.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, and then this as well. And we also added a so then these are the examples.
So maybe call out that there are examples in the button below, because I'm looking at that and I don't get all the way down to how to be specific.
Oh, like up here in the sub question. Got it.
So what's something like there are examples below or something? Then
Click how to be specific below for examples, or
I would call the button examples if that's what it has.
Yeah.
It doesn't tell you how specific. It doesn't say like very specific. It actually gives examples. So
I like that.
This is a doc assemble thing that I'm not sure about. The boxes are really big. Is that normal?
You can change the size if you want. I think that might be the standard text area size.
Sure. Okay.
If you want to keep that in there too, you could say how specific, not in the box, and then example on the box. But I think examples would probably just
I think examples is good.
Caroline, what do you think of examples? Just because I know you wanted it to be how specific yesterday. I just wanted to make sure.
Caroline's quit.
Caroline, you're muted. Caroline, you're still muted.
Still muted.
We went back and forth about it being how specific, or I forget what the other terminology was.
Yeah, we definitely, I mean, we did a lot of readability edits, and you guys are pointing out all kinds of stuff that, I didn't see on the fly yesterday. So I think it is really helpful. I think I think this is great. I would not ask how specific anywhere else, because that's a question that it's not we're asking the questions, they're answering. So I think I think examples makes calling the button examples is a great idea.
Or
and then as David suggested at the top, to say see examples below or something lower down the page.
Yeah, or at the bottom or something.
Yeah.
I would say something like see examples as opposed to just examples. Because that
wait,
kind of
oh
command.
yes. Oh, you mean you'd make the green button say see examples?
Yep.
That's
what's in there. I mean, unless you change the contents of that page.
You think that button's
No,
green?
I just don't know why you'd say C. I just thought you could just say
as a command. Because like
definitely
examples,
not green though, right?
What am I supposed to do with that? I don't know. I think a call to action can sometimes be more useful, but that's details. That's a really small detail. So if not, that's fine with me.
Okay, perfect.
Right.
Yeah. I think you guys can pick what you want. I don't care about that one either.
And then this is going to come earlier now too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, but otherwise looks good, right? You can add multiple. Then this one, I think, is just basic questions.
Basic, yeah.
And then this is new, or not a new question, but just like newly formatted.
Yeah, I like this. I like the change in the language.
Okay, and then it does a link to Master Help. Okay, then we'll do.
I think am I mute? I think the accuracy of that question maybe has changed though.
It's the direct message you sent that.
Sorry.
All right. Sorry, this is the direct message they sent me that I haven't gotten back to yet.
I would say they've expanded beyond a few. I would say they are only hearing some types of cases now, because it has expanded a little bit from when this was.
How about we just say some emergency cases instead of some kinds, some emergency cases?
They're doing some non-emergencies now too.
How about some cases?
Yeah,
some cases. That's what I would
they
say.
are only hearing some cases right now.
And I'm going to say this isn't language because it's a factual matter. It's not that the courts are closed. It's that the court buildings are closed.
Yeah.
Well, some of the courts are closed, right? Because if somebody gets sick in the court, they close the court.
Yeah, they are
every single day here, every single day.
Yeah, but we do want to make clear that the court may. So we want to make it clear that the court may be open or closed, but the building may be closed, but the court may be open.
Then we can link to Richard Susskind's article about, is courts a service or a place? Just for some light reading for pro se users.
And link to it, right?
Yeah, so, link to it. Link to argument.
So I should change this as well to David.
I think that's the thing. I think that's that's like an assembly line decision how we're going to talk about this, because I know the courts made a big deal. We changed courts to courthouses. However, sometimes the court themselves is closed. And who cares? The point is, from our user doesn't care whether it's the court or the courthouse, as long as they get their. These nuances don't really matter as long as they can ask for an emergency hearing, right?
Right. The distinction being that we don't want them to think that they can't ask for it, and that's the fear of saying the court may be closed.
Well, this is so the point is the kinds of cases the court is hearing now, right? That's what the point is, right? So if you don't have one of these cases, then you probably won't get a hearing.
Yeah, so I think
it doesn't even matter if the court's closed or not.
Yeah, well, except that someone might hear the court's closed, and so you have to make sure that you follow up with that they are still hearing some things. So I think for consistency's sake, it's the court buildings.
You could say the second line first, that the courts are only hearing a few kinds of emergency cases right now.
During the COVID-19 crisis, just leave out the closed thing altogether.
Michelle, I'm sorry, Caroline, what'd you say at the end?
I think what you could do is forget about the court may be closed, just the concept of whether the court is closed or not. And as Michelle said, the courts are only hearing a few kinds of, well, what we said, the courts are only hearing some cases during the coronavirus or during the COVID-19 crisis, and just leave it like that.
Yep.
And
Okay.
then find out what the court is hearing now. That gives us a lot more flexibility. It doesn't matter if because this is one of the things that this is one of the types of forms the court asks for, right? So if they approve it, then we're going to be submitting, and then it's up to them to figure out where the submission goes if the court isn't open, right?
Yeah, they are going to, I think they are suspecting this will say emergency motion at some point.
Yeah, so
Exactly.
it's going to say that at the end, but so why are we, like, I feel like the user is going to be confused then, because it's like, if they're, it's okay, well, it's like I wrote down the sentence, like, during the COVID-19 crisis, the courts are only hearing some kinds of cases, but, and it's being, that would probably be
Yeah,
like,
it should be emergency. Some emergency cases.
some kinds of emergency cases.
Except
Okay.
they just said they're
Yeah.
hearing some non-emergency cases.
That's true, now that we're reopened.
Right.
Right, and yeah, we want language that won't go stale too quickly either, I think.
Right. So if we say the courts are only hearing some cases during the COVID-19 crisis, then that catches everything.
Or how about,
Yeah,
like,
but
I
they-
think so too.
what about like the court's capacity for caseload or to handle cases is fluctuating during
So
COVID?
I think the
That's not
issue
really very
here,
clear.
as Mia brought up, was that it's weird that we're asking, is this an emergency? So the text should be responsive to the question, which is to say that if I'm the user, I want to know that if I'm answering it, whether or not it's an emergency, there's some reason behind why I'm answering that. So the motivation here is they're only hearing emergencies. So if you're answering emergency, then that you're going to get it heard.
How about the courts are only hearing some cases right now? Emergencies will generally get priority. I don't know.
I like that. I like that. That sentiment I like.
And
I
then
think
better
then
language.
just the thing about
Yeah.
the link, then just remember to update the link about read more about the kinds of cases. I think that because we've taken our kinds,
So I think we've put a big old language edit question on here. It's no changing of flow. It would just be changing of text.
Yeah. Well, or I think like the point we're trying to make is to set people's expectation that their case might not be heard right away.
Well, yeah, but
Or
also,
to set the expectation that if they really should say emergency here, if it's an emergency, because that will more likely get them heard.
I think that we should drive towards more, like
Yeah.
setting the
also, I think
I liked Kate's.
yeah, me too.
I think this would be a continue button, not a yes or no in that case, right?
no, because it's
No, we're
an
still gonna ask.
emergency.
Oh,
Sometimes it's
Okay,
The answer here is dependent, like, or the outcome
got it.
is
Got it.
responsive on the PDF. Yeah.
So either emergency will get populated on the PDF or not.
Sorry. Anything else?
I'm just wondering if those I'm wondering if those two concepts need to be connected to each other, right? Do we want them just as separate concepts? That's my
Which two concepts?
the question of whether or not this is an emergency and the knowledge that the court is only hearing certain kinds of cases right now.
I think they're logically connected
Okay.
because the emergency is the thing that makes you more likely to be heard.
Okay.
And that will have to be articulated in the language.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
This is an emergency then.
There we go.
Okay.
All right, now we get to the thing you DM'd me that I haven't responded to yet. So
Yeah.
yay.
Okay, so, and this was what Kate was talking to us about yesterday as well. We have some questions. We know this screen needs some work in regard to not really knowing if we should be prompting them to call, or if we should be prompting the user to call the court at this moment in the interview in order to get their hearing date information, or if they, like, it's not a required field, but yeah. So I think we're
So the one, let's just talk it out in a second. So the one thing we know is that at this point in the interview, they do have, okay. I have a 2-year-old asking for more paper, please, or actually a 1.5.
Paper is important.
Yeah, 1.5-year-old. I'm sorry. we know that they know the court and they know the docket number at this point.
Yeah.
So if we were going to tell them to call the court, and we also know the court, so if we were going to tell them to call the court, I think it would be important to provide them with the number to call, because we could do that, and also to tell them to have ready the docket number and the docket number.
So should this question also come with the court name and docket number questions more towards the beginning then of the interview? Because if we're asking those questions, would it be more logical to have those three all together?
You don't want to have to make 2 separate phone calls to the court if you're not using
That's
mass
my
court.
Very good point.
That's my thinking, yeah.
Okay.
Me again. I just want to know.
Now, that being said, since this is not a mandatory field, Kate, from like an operational standpoint, is this necessary?
So that's what I feel like. It kind of depends on what the court wants through this, because it's, every court does scheduling hearings a little bit differently, and I don't know what the courts want in terms of scheduling hearings through this. Like, some courts you just schedule the hearing before you file, sometimes they schedule the hearing after you file. So it's hard to make like a general,
Kate,
I don't know what the general rule should be.
You're talking about motions in ongoing cases, right? So
right, so like with some courts.
If this motion is accompanying a complaint, then you're not gonna know yet because you haven't filed anything.
Right, yeah, so there's that. There's also like,
yeah, so
Suffolk won't give you a hearing date until they have the motion in hand. Essex makes you have the hearing date before you file a motion. So it's like, I don't know what to do here.
So yeah, it almost seems like what we don't want to, the problem is that some people will not be able to ever answer this.
Right.
Even if they call, then it would be frustrating as a user to call and be said, well, we can't give you that because we haven't scheduled it yet. We need you to do that. And that's going to be a horrible user experience.
So I genuinely don't know what to do with this question.
Let's play it out.
Varied from court to court.
That's the one horrible user experience, is calling to ask for the date and then being said, well, no, it's impossible for me to give you a date yet. You have to file first. The alternative would be you don't know the date, but there is a date and you file it. What happens then?
What if we had in the sub question, some court, first of all, we don't ask this, if you're starting the case, we don't even ask this question.
I think it's worth asking.
Can I finish,
David's
Michelle?
question? Sure.
So Caroline?
Yep.
So if you're filing a complaint with a motion, you don't ask the question at all because you haven't started the case yet. And in the sub question, you can say different courts have different requirements. Some courts ask for this information before you file, some courts, so call your court and find out what they want. I mean, you could say something like that.
Let's get the threshold question of what happens in the case where there is a hearing schedule, but you do not include that information in this motion. So Kate, what do you think normally happens in that case?
I've never done that.
Can I make a suggestion?
Go ahead.
Okay, sorry. I was, never mind. If you have an answer, then I'd rather hear that.
Actually, it's going to vary court to court. Some courts are very, very strict on you had to schedule your motion for a specific hearing date. More loosey-goosey judges will probably just be like, okay, everyone's here, let's just hear it.
So in that case, I do have a suggestion, which is, have you called the court to find out when your hearing is, and then a sub question that says some courts will or won't have, or whatever the explanation is.
Why don't we put this question after they pick the court, and then we can put this question up if that's a court that will want them to have a hearing. You know what I mean? Like then
that kind of.
Well, we're not going to know that practice. I think what we can do is we can, a variation on Michelle's bit, which is that push back the threshold question, which is, do you have a hearing date for this? Do you have a hearing date, right? And then we can make decisions based upon that.
Yeah, and if they don't have the hearing date, then you say the court might or might not know it. Have you called the court to ask, and then move on from there, type of thing?
Yeah, well, at least in that case, if you have a hearing date, then yes, you fill it out. There's no question about that. If you don't have a hearing date, then you can be more refined.
I mean, it could also be done as submit it, follow up by the court with telephone after.
Yeah, that's my,
That doesn't, I think that won't be as successful in getting people to actually call the court.
no, but we don't need them to call the court if we do that. So if we push it off that way, we can say, do you know the hearing date? If yes, you include it. If not, we
Just
don't ask
carry
them for
on.
the hearing date. And we put it upon the court's responsibility is to, within a business day, reach back out to the person who's filing the motion.
As long as they know that, sure, yeah.
Well, that's part of our agreement is they are supposed to reach back out within a business day.
I think that's a very good solution, because the other thing you don't want is, you know, lots of times when you call the court, you off recording, you talk to really bitchy people.
Oh, this is not off recording, but okay.
No, I just said it. That's
Maeve
all.
can edit it out, yep.
I mean, I think that,
Okay.
I mean, you don't want people to have to call the court twice in
Yeah.
one interview.
That's what I said. It's like, hey, me again.
Yeah,
also,
no,
I
exactly.
Hate that.
And you don't want some of those really busy, harassed people saying, you should know this already. You know, I mean, it's just, it's so horrible.
Yeah,
And also scheduling's different during COVID too. Like,
yeah,
more of the courts are wanting to see it up front. They're deciding if it's something they're giving priority and then scheduling.
Yeah, I think that's I like that idea of, do you have? Yes, fill it in. No, skip question.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then it just rests upon the court, and then the court will either assent to or not assent to that logic when we submit them this form.
And also, that's partly putting on the court. You've already asked for the motion hearing, and then that's putting on the, you know, whether they're going to decide if it's an emergency or not as well. If you say emergency.
And the other thing I'll say is that our previous discussion, they were hoping actually you don't need to call the court for your docket number and such because you're going to use the mass courts link.
But that's only, not everybody's going to be able to do. Some people, right?
But we're not trying. I'm just trying to say we're not directing people immediately to call the courts.
No.
Okay, so Mia and Vinny, have you got what that kind of conversation ended up with?
The only question I had then was if you, so it's going to be like, do you, obviously language is going to be different, but like, do you have a hearing date? And it's going to be a yes, no. And then if it's yes, you see this screen. And if it's no, should it be a show if with info on how to get the hearing date?
No, you just
we're going to say no.
Skip the question. Okay, got it.
Okay.
Wonderful. Okay.
Okay.
Here we go. Let's skip the question.
Well, we spent a lot of time on that yesterday, and I bet you spent time with Kate on that yesterday too. It's a complicated issue.
Yeah, and the problem is I just don't know.
Yeah.
I just have to, in order to get the service questions, I forgot.
You have to change the
this one. Yeah, I forgot.
Oh, I like that impounded.
Yeah, now that we have, if the other party's address is impounded, you won't see the service questions.
Okay.
So.
You really get to know your form really well when you do this, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
Well, you've been working on it for.
Unless it's the 209A.
Oh wait, no, Mia, you hit the impound. That's why.
Oh.
Okay.
Unless it's the 209A, in which case you won't know.
We're back again.
Here we go.
I know the form. Never know the 209A. I need some paths to write tests for once the eviction moratorium is.
Okay, so this is the serving. Oh, need to get a copy of anything you file with the court.
Oh, okay. This should just say needs a copy, not needs to get a copy. I think needs a copy. Go ahead.
I think this probably technically is, this is language, but can we say you are responsible for getting them a copy?
Oh.
You need to get them a copy?
Well, this is only, oh, right, we're in service, right? Yeah.
You must get
the
other side a copy, because I don't want people to think the court does it.
Or a copy to the other side, maybe.
Yeah.
And then getting the copies to Blink is called service is fine, second sentence? Just the first sentence needs to change?
Do you know, when will you deliver?
No, we're talking about the second sentence. Getting the copies to custody
Yes.
is called service.
It's fine, yeah.
Fine by me.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But then the question should be, when will you get this motion delivered to?
Oh yeah, that active
When will you deliver this motion to Custody LLC?
Well, this is asking whether they know, like.
Yeah.
Do you know when you will deliver?
Yeah.
Well, so I guess the thing is, remember, if it's starting a case, right, in probate and family court, you don't serve it if you're starting the case, right? You get a sheriff or constable to serve it.
Yeah, but you're still responsible. Yeah, I guess, do you know when? All right, yeah, keep it that way.
Okay.
Well, then but take away the passive voice.
But this thing doesn't really allow for simultaneous filing of a complaint anyway.
Yeah, this is all happening
you mean
after.
you can't file a complaint in the interview, you mean?
Because we don't have the complaint.
You won't have a docket number.
Right, but I'm just saying because your question is, are you starting this? So you're not,
No,
if you're starting a case, you're not going to serve the motion that goes with the complaint separately.
So does it need to be
this is
conditional
not-
text based on serving or not serving?
So if we just go back to the question before,
mean,
are we
starting
starting
now,
this case? It's, did you start this case? That was only to determine what side you were.
Oh, it's only, I thought it was, are you, okay, remember. Okay, so that's just to determine if you're plaintiff or defendant.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
Correct.
Okay, so this isn't a motion to accompany a complaint. This is just a
No.
motion once the case is already started.
Right.
Oh yeah, because you asked that in the beginning, right? Is there a case already going on? And if it's not,
Well, I think we explicitly say it's for a case. That's
yeah, a case that's
going.
already existing.
Okay,
maybe someday when there's a robust complaint through this.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, this is just for existing cases. And that's why we're asking for the docket number and stuff.
Yeah, okay, right, yeah.
Okay, so this is then, when will this be delivered?
Well,
or when, know, right?
Yeah, do you know,
know when this will be delivered? Okay. But if you just said you have to deliver it to the person, then
Do you know when you will deliver this? But you might not. You're not actually the one.
It's a little bit weird because if you're doing by mail, see if you're doing
I'm curious
by mail,
what happens next. So maybe if we look at those, then
so
that'll help us.
if you say no here, you go directly to the end, and you just skip all the service questions altogether. And if you say yes, then you will be asked by hand or by mail, and you'll get more information.
What if you skip the do you know and ask them how they plan to serve who's what's, because they have to serve them.
Yeah.
Right, but I think they might not know because it might depend on that phone call to the court they have to make.
Oh,
so
because of the hearing date.
Our post whatever instruction should be like, you need to call the court for about scheduling a hearing and for instructions about service. You are responsible for serving the other side or whatever.
So if they say they do have a hearing date, right?
So this came up in response to the one of the forms we have with the court now in regards to service, and they have not been as forthcoming in response to our direct questions as we would have hoped.
They don't know the answer. Probably.
So what Quentin and I believe we decided was that we would provide them with an option that was basically either if you are simultaneously serving this, which is to say, okay, so the question might be something like, you're responsible for this. Are you sending them a copy right now? Or have you already sent them a copy? If those things are the cases, then we say, okay, how did you send it? Mailed, not mailed, mailed in hand, blah, blah, blah. And if your answer is no, then we do just, I think, what this one was doing, which is that we don't do anything with service, and that gets left on the court to recognize, oh, well, they haven't served it yet. And then in that interaction, when they reach back within the business day, then that has to be discussed.
If you want to change your entire interview, guys, that's all. No worries.
No, actually, that doesn't change this very much.
Okay.
No, it doesn't. But the thing is, David, if you have a hearing date, doesn't that change? If you have a hearing date, can they not go ahead and serve? Or you're saying the court may still give different instructions for service?
you have a hearing date, there's no reason you shouldn't just serve it.
Well, because what I'm saying is this question may change depending on whether you have a hearing date or not.
Yeah.
So if you don't have a hearing date, you can't serve. So if you don't have a hearing date, you don't ask service questions. If you do have a hearing date, then you can ask service questions. You can be really specific. Did we ever? And also, it has to. You want to.
So, Kate, is that necessarily true? Would you not serve if you didn't have the hearing date?
You're probably supposed to serve when you file.
Yeah, that's my suspicion.
Oh.
But it might make sense to like call the court, get your hearing date, and then serve. I mean, that's like.
But I think that's handled in our hearing date bit. I mean, the reality here is that this is a workflow that's not the traditional workflow because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
So there's only so much that we can do. And I think that what we can do is we can say, have you served, or are you going to immediately serve the person? And if the answer is yes, then that's the same as we know it. And then we ask by mail or in hand. If you say no, then we say something like, we reiterate, you will be responsible for service. Discuss this with the clerk. They should contact you within 1 business day of filing.
If you haven't completed the motion, how can you have already served?
That was my question.
Well, you know you're serving. I'm going to print it out and serve it right now.
Yeah,
but it still wouldn't be have you served.
Well, I don't think the question is have you served. It's,
no, that's what I said. So
I
say, are you? So really, it should be related to are you going to print this out and serve this immediately?
I see. Right. We haven't asked the file question yet either, right?
What would be the final question?
Oh, it's
When are
like
you filing?
when are you planning to file
Oh,
this?
I am.
This one automatically submits, right?
Correct.
Yes.
Oh, so we don't ask that question in this interview.
And that's going to be filed now. So is that correct? We don't ask that question in this interview?
We ask when do you plan to file these forms?
Oh,
That's for the signature date.
Well, should we not have that then? Since this is submitting by email to the court?
Yeah, there's no need to have a post date or pre-date. If that's just going to be the signature date, that should just be today.
So should we just have this automatically like populate on the form, or should we?
I think that makes. I mean,
Yeah,
if they're going to submit it at the end of the interview, then you wouldn't ask this question.
Yeah, I think
And
that's
remember,
correct.
this form should be dated the date you signed, not the date you file anyway. I think. I mean, I always, like, if you file it 2 days later, I don't change the date because.
Right.
Yeah, when you sign, it's when you sign.
So this question's, even though it's a basic question, it's wrong.
So I think that's something
Well,
that
it's just
everybody
not-
needs to pay attention to. This is going to be
It's
something
just
that,
not necessary. If you are signing the electronic form, your signature date should be the date on which you signed it.
Right.
Right. But that's what Kate's saying. So, I mean, as a basic question, this is something to think about.
Well,
too.
it made sense in the 209A.
Yeah, in that context,
I feel like.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
just here.
So
I think in other
basically
contexts might be
you're
different.
equating signature date with filing date then.
I think Kate was saying that we actually don't want to do that. It's just that here that happens to be the case as well.
Right, because the date represents the date you signed. You're dating your signature.
Right. All I'm saying is if the date represents the date you sign across the board, then the question shouldn't be when do you plan to file? That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Right. And I get in this interview, it makes sense not to do this question because they're going to submit at the end and they're going to sign it in order to submit it. So so in this interview, the signature date and the filing date are the same, and you don't need to ask this question.
Yes, I think that's the point, is that this is distinguished from, say, something like a 209A, because here the filing date and the signature date will necessarily be the same.
Yeah.
So should this question be coming later when, like, right after they sign the form?
I think
Get
we
rid of the
decided
question.
this question doesn't get asked and gets automatically populated with the date of the actual signature. Is that is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, one less screen. Exciting.
Okay, so then we were here, I think, right?
So then it's
Yeah.
some variation on, are you going to, after we've explained it's your responsibility, this is called service, then it's something like, are you going to deliver a copy to this person immediately after sending to the court?
Well, do we want to say, are you, or are we going to say you need to?
We need to say, are you?
I mean, you say, do you, I mean, you need to do this, right? As soon as you file, you need to do this. Do you plan to do it by mail or by hand?
And the problem is some people might not be able to do either.
Well, how about by mail or by hand? I can't serve right now.
I like that.
Same. I think that, like, Kate, what do you think of that?
Sounds good.
Okay, so basically it would be getting rid of this screen, or basically combining this screen and this screen.
Yep.
And then making a I can't serve right now option.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the important part is, if you say I can't serve right now, then you need to flag that you will need to discuss this further with the clerk,
Right.
who should contact you within a
Working
business
day.
day of your
Right.
filing.
So basically, when the court calls you to schedule when the court calls you or emails you, make sure you tell them you couldn't serve and ask them what you should do, something like that.
Something like that, yeah. And the MOU says that they will contact you by the end of the next business day. So that's the it's not just a day, end of the next business day. You should hear from the clerk.
Okay.
And then, so yeah, if you click either one of these, it's going to ask you, well, by hand, it's going to be date and time of service. And then for mail, it's just going to be the date.
Right. And this is where you might have some issues, right? So if it's by hand, they haven't done it yet.
Right.
So this is actually an interesting question. They couldn't ever have filed this by hand before they've sent it, because they haven't generated the form to print out to give to the person yet.
No, this is not have you. This is, you need to do this. How are you going to do it?
Yeah, but you can't say that you've served someone in hand in the future if you haven't served them in hand yet, because they might not be where you think they're going to be.
Oh, you mean you can't say I'm going to serve by hand?
No, the certificate of service says that I have.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
And the courts don't require you to submit the certificate of service until the hearing date. So you can always do the certificate of service later. They don't require it simultaneously.
Yeah, and I think that's
Some
what's
of
going to.
this stuff might be on the cover page that goes to the user, right?
Yeah, first we have to figure out what we're
Yeah.
going to say before we put
Yeah.
it
But I
in.
think this is why we fall back to the idea is basically, if you've been able to do service, if you're able to do service right now, then you can certify service. If you're not, then that's the fallback for you'll have to talk to the clerk. So I'm not even sure we can say
Serve by hand.
serve by hand at all, because it's logically impossible for someone
Unless
to
they're
serve
like
something by
sharing
hand.
a house with the person.
Yeah.
Well, except they haven't even, by the time we're asking them this, they have not even produced the document yet.
Yeah.
Well, they haven't produced it, but the thing is, by the time they get it, you say you have, okay, this was the issue. This is what we had with the motion to dismiss the CRA. Is somebody in that motion to dismiss CRA on this call?
That's Jack and Nick. I don't.
No, because this was the really big issue. Is there any way we can go ahead to the form and look at it? Because the certificate of service, does it say I actually already have served in this form? Because I noticed that on the motion to dismiss CRA, and it looked different from other certificates of service. So
Like, you want me to pull up the PDF?
yeah, let's just look at the certificate of service.
It should say that I certify that I have served.
You've already served.
That's what the certificate of service says. It's not an intent
Except
to serve.
right, you have to sign it too, don't you?
Yeah, and that's why we're basically saying, I think that the point is, if they have done it or are doing simultaneously, we can let them fill in information. If they aren't able to do it simultaneously or haven't done it, then they can't. And mail gets this, like simultaneous service thing going, because you can always just put a stamp on something and drop it in the mail. There's no.
Okay, I hear. Oh, that I have delivered. Right.
There's if by mailing it, you drop it in the mailbox today. Like today is all of today, right? You put it in the mailbox. It's all. But if you say I'm going to give this to this person today at 3, and they're not there at 3,
and then you mail it, or don't mail it.
Yeah. So it's only really for the. So I'm starting to think that the only option really is mailing, and so maybe the question becomes: are you going to mail a copy to this? Are you after you complete this form? Are you going to immediately mail a copy for service? And
or
if the answer
not,
is
maybe
yes,
not. Are you going to? You need to. And then if they say I can't, then you say talk to me.
So it's after the can you immediately mail this?
Well,
to the
you
person?
need to. When will you do it? Or
Well,
I
that's an
can't.
extra question. If I say can you, and then they say yes, then I can say great, you
Okay.
need to, here it is. If they say no, then you're in the situation of the no, as opposed to having to
I see.
ask instead of, it's the same
Both.
content.
Yeah. Same structure as the
So
hearing.
so if we go back, then this is saying basically this question gets replaced by sort of a new question, which is, so it's the same thing. It's that you need to do this. It's called service. And then it's,
Can you mail a copy?
Will you be able to mail a copy immediately upon completion of this form? And if the answer is yes, then you go forward. If the answer is no, then it's the, you will have to at some point file a certificate of service. You can discuss this with the clerk when they call back before the end of the next business day.
Mm-hmm.
Kate, does that sound appropriate? I'm not sure if Kate might be split focus here, so that's.
I have to go.
She's got real work.
Right.
Okay. So I think that's the thing is, can you immediately mail? If yes, then basically just treat it like it was the person clicked mail. If no, then you will have to do this at some point, discuss it with the clerk. And then of course you don't sign the certificate of service.
Mm-hmm.
So, but if you do the mail one,
You have the same mail questions.
and
which,
you do sign this, it all flows the same way.
I don't think you'd say I don't think you'd also say 10 days before the hearing. You'd basically, because you're telling them they've got to mail it right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that doesn't have to be there.
Questions.
Yeah, that's
okay.
correct.
And then this is it. So thankfully. Okay.
Only an hour later.
That is such a straight, you're so good at the straight line. I
I
don't
know.
understand this.
Isn't that something like if you can draw?
Is that with the mouse that you're doing that?
It's just I'm on my Mac. Just I don't know.
Oh, it's the touchpad. Okay, that makes more sense than a mouse.
Okay. And then I don't know why this is showing up. It's because I was going back and forth. So maybe I don't know if there's a way of fixing that, but it shouldn't show up twice though.
Yeah, so that's in your code. You probably had something to fix.
The back and forth should not have changed it.
Yeah.
It shouldn't have?
No, because it erases your answers after, like when you go back, it erases the answers that you made after that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll have to take a look at that.
All right, bye, Kate.
And then
Bye.
I think Kate already left.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, the sentiment is there.
She can watch the recording later.
Watch the recording. I'll say goodbye to her.
I'm separate for her.
Okay.
It was a really nice goodbye. We talked about it for 3 minutes.
Alrighty. So well, we will.
That's
Okay, it is great work. This is great work.
This is amazing.
I like to see
Like
it.
I really hope you've internalized that like all of this feedback is just opportunities for improvement. It's not in any way critique. I know that can sometimes be hard.
But it's also triggering like decisions for all interviews across the board as well. You know, it's bringing up questions interview wide, you know, assembly line wide.
Yeah.
Right.
And I
Good
feel
job,
like
guys.
maybe I think this was great, but Maeve, I am aware that we did all the talking.
Yep.
So
I don't
there
know.
are.
I don't want to call on people. I don't want to be that person. I don't know. So far,
Well, so
Eric
for
and
folks
Vance-
who for folks who are still on the call but did not talk, why?
everybody except for
what would
Aubrey and
make you
Eric.
more likely to talk? And then, of course, I realize that you might not say anything because you might just have us. You might not actually be there anymore, except for Eric, who definitely seems to be there because he's responding with his face,
Like,
and Aubrey
I am
now.
here.
Ooh, I like that. I like that.
Sinead.
It's hard. I mean, the thing is, like, I
Yeah.
think that both Eric and Aubrey's comments were really, really good. I think that I would encourage everybody else to sorry.
Thanks, sorry.
Everyone's just being positive. Okay, I don't go out. It's responsive to the
there are
question.
only positive reactions. You can't make negative reactions. So yeah.
I cannot wait to comment on theirs.
There we go. Maybe that's the key. The key to being an active commenter is to first have been commented on.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, so we look forward to Vinny's feedback tomorrow on Sinead and Fanona's form. I will put this on YouTube so that people can, you know, have a look at it and see what kind of things we called out and things we agreed upon and how to deal with certain questions. But otherwise, thank you guys so much for your time. I know it's been a long meeting. I really appreciate it, and I will see you guys tomorrow.
Thank you
Great work,
guys.
everybody.
All
Great
right.
work.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.